Welcome back, everyone, to the program. I really appreciate you spending some of your valuable time with me as I talk to you about various different topics of the economy and the cryptocurrency world. Today, we're going to talk about, here's my Twitter point. There we go. There's how to follow me on Twitter. There's going to be a little bit more activity there in the near future. But that's where I share things. And, sometimes I do it on Instagram. Sometimes I do it here. But there's different ways to find me. But today's video is going to be about Bitcoin, a little bit of its history. Now, a recent post came out on Zero Hedge. I will share that in the description. Please like, share, and subscribe if you want, and hit the notification bell, all that good stuff, and share this video with people that you think would be interested in it. It really helps out the channel. But I wanted to talk about this particular story about the Bitcoin emails. Now, this is a story that just appeared on the Zero Hedge over the weekend. Don't know how many people saw this, but let me share my screen. Let's do it this way. There we go. And this is the new Satoshi emails, 120 pages of detailed working on Bitcoin. So this is from one of the early collaborators, Marty Sirius Malmi. So for those of you who don't know, in the early days of Bitcoin, before I even got involved, there were message boards where people were talking, like Reddit and bulletin boards on the early days of the internet back in 2008 or so. In 2009, where Satoshi Nakamoto started posting about this thing called Bitcoin. Now, there were emails. This is one from 2009, back and forth. And there's 120 of pages of emails that have been released. Okay. It's tied to a lawsuit. That's why they got released. But it's interesting insight on the thinking of the person that wrote these emails, which was Satoshi. And here's just a highlight of the 10 or 15 different topics that are highlighted. Go read the article if you want to learn more. Read the emails. They're available out there. But it gives you some insight on some of the early thoughts behind the process of making Bitcoin and what Satoshi was thinking before he disappeared. And we'll get to that in a moment too. So first off, email number one, Satoshi's Bitcoin scaling assumptions. This is where they asked the question, how might Bitcoin scale in the future? And he responded that in theory, there might be up to 100,000 nodes, and the economics of that, the bandwidth, the cost to nodes, and in this particular email, and this segment, the nodes refer to miners. So there's a difference between a node and a miner. You can run a Bitcoin node, which is basically a validator running the entire history of all the transactions, all the different blocks. That's running a full node. In this sense, by this definition, this node, this is before, remember, miners weren't even started yet. I mean, they didn't really start things yet. Miners are essentially the nodes that they're talking about. So they're thinking about 100,000 miners. There's more than that now, but this is like talking about the math of the network and how it might work. Email number two, Bitcoin doesn't waste energy. Very interesting that he pointed that out. And he basically just said that the cost of running the network is less than the cost of running the banking system, which is, that definition and that argument stands valid today. Because the banking network right now takes up 10 times as much energy as the entire Bitcoin network. So that's a falsehood that they try to perpetrate, more FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They try to say that, to try to put their negative kibosh on Bitcoin. Number three, Satoshi on time stamping. That was one of the things that really made this a possibility. Before Bitcoin and the advent of the internet and how fast it was, you couldn't get the timestamps to figure out who won each block. With the way the internet progressed, and in 2009, the speed of the network was available, and the speed of the internet was available to do the timestamps and say, okay, this block won, and gets the reward. So that's how you can propagate the blockchain. Number four, DigiCash. Satoshi talked about DigiCash. I won't go into the details, but it does talk about David Chaum and Hal Finney and some of the other earlier people, the cyberpunks, and how they were working on an electronic form of currency. Bitcoin was not the first. It's just proven to be the best of the best so far, and it may prove to be the best longer time. We'll have to wait and see, but it's certainly remarkable that's lasted 15 years and the network's never been hacked. Now, there have been other things that have been hacked, and usually those are exchanges, but not the Bitcoin code itself. That's been up and running, and it only had some downtime in the first year, but since then it's been up and running and rock solid, and it has so much value, almost over $1 trillion of value now with Bitcoin over $50,000. You would think that if it could be hacked for $1 trillion, someone would. But this speaks to the early days of the first attempts like DigiCash and how he talks about the finite supply of Bitcoin. Email number 5, Satoshi was concerned about promoting Bitcoin. This is some of his concerns about being the face of Bitcoin or being the face of any project, which other leaders like Vitalik Buterin for Ethereum, Charles Hoskinson with Cardano, a few others out there. You've got other people that are leading various projects, and they've had various issues over time. But because Bitcoin has no figurehead, then there's no one really to attack. And it's part of the reason I believe that Charlie Lee stepped down as the leader of Litecoin. Number 6, Satoshi got burned out on Bitcoin. That was his first time that he stepped away. Bitcoin, a way to get free money. He was talking about how miners eventually would get value, and that eventually became equivalent to money, because in the early days, before the whole pizza transaction, which everybody talks about once a year, the first transaction, I think it was 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas. Before that transaction, Bitcoin had no true monetary value. Email number 8, mysterious Bitcoin donor emerges in June of 2010. Kept that pretty anonymous. Satoshi, again, was a fan of free transactions. That's email number 9. There's only a few more. Satoshi was dedicated to his own work. He worked on Christmas Day, but I mean, he was a techie. All right. He was a tech person. Maybe didn't have much from family life, personal life. Hey, I don't know about you, but sometimes Christmas days do get boring. So it doesn't surprise me that he was working that day. Bitcoin, a web currency for currency trading. Number 12, Satoshi's first disappearance. That's when in 2010. Satoshi realized Bitcoin wasn't anonymous. This comes back to the phrase pseudo-anonymous. And he didn't want to be truly anonymous because then he thought it might be considered shady. So pseudo-anonymous is that you can trace back to addresses, but you may not know who has a particular address. Email number 14, that last 2. Satoshi gives praise to his protege. That's Gavin Andresen. He's appeared in a couple of movies. I'll mention those in a moment. And then Satoshi finally said sayonara and stepped away. And that was in July of 2010. So dropping out of here, I know I went quickly. You can read the article again. You can find the emails if you want. But just goes to show that there's a lot of history here. There was a lot of thought put behind it. Satoshi was pretty smart in a number of ways, in particular keeping his identity anonymous, because then he couldn't be an attack vector for the network. I'm sure he would have been persecuted had there been a true creator of Bitcoin. But look how far it's come. But you can see a lot of the insight into his mind by reading some of the older emails. As far as the early days, I'll mention 2 movies. And those of you who have made it this far, hashtag movie in the comments. I really appreciate that. We get something trending there. Let me know if you've seen these movies or haven't seen them yet. One is on, I've watched them both. They're very interesting and very entertaining, especially for those who like perspective of what the thought process was back in the early days. So one of them, I believe, is available on Freevee or Tubi, one of those free apps that's out there on various ways to download TV or movies. It's called The Rise and Rise of Bitcoin. And it shows, I think it was around 2004, 2005. And the Bitcoin was like bouncing between $20 to $200. It was very entertaining to watch their conversation. And a lot of the same thought process continues, but just at a different scale. Same for miners, same for people that are investors in it. It's very interesting to watch. So again, the rise and rise of Bitcoin. And I mention this because people like Hal Finney and other people, Andresen, they appear in these movies. Hal Finney's mentioned, I believe, in the Banking on Bitcoin movie, which is, I believe that's on Netflix. At least it used to be. But that's also an entertaining movie. And it shows some insight and some thinking behind Bitcoin in the early days and how it came to be and some of the issues that they had in the early days. But those are entertaining. Check out those videos. Again, I really appreciate the like, share, subscribe, comments. I read them all. Thank you again for sharing your time, and I will see you next video. Take care.